when I was learning piano, I had no idea how to actually play the music that I was playing. I would always memorize each piece that I learned as individual notes and then string all those notes together to make a song. And I had no in-depth understanding of what was going on behind the scenes. It was all surface level. It was all muscle memory. And when it came time to actually play something, I had no idea what to do. I couldn't play pieces in a different key. I couldn't extend chords. I couldn't have fun with it. And so I fell into that trap of only being able to look at sheet music for so long. And I want to, in this video, explain how I got out of that. I'm going to talk about scales. I'm going to talk about chords, inversions, and how all of that works together. So before I play the piece, Brahms' Lullaby, I want to go into an analogy that will sort of frame the rest of the video. Building a piece of music or learning a piece of music is a lot like building a house. We need three things. We need the foundation, we need the frame of the house, or like the walls and all the rooms, and then we need to furnish that house with furniture to make it a living space. So first, the foundation of any house is its scale. What are the notes actually being played, and what are we going to build off of? Okay, once we have that actual foundation, we can form the frame of the house and build all of the rooms. Those are the chords. So within each scale, we form a bunch of different chords using the notes of that scale. Okay, then we put some furniture in that house. And the thing about furniture is that you can rearrange it. You can put it wherever you want, just according to your liking. And furniture, it doesn't change the function of each room. It doesn't adjust the frame of the house. It doesn't change the size of the rooms. And so when we're actually inverting a chord, it doesn't change the harmony. It doesn't change the structure of the music. All right, so once we learn all those chords, I'm going to tie it together into a concept known as functional harmony, where we have a home base, we have a tense point that we want to get off of, a sort of like bridge between the two, and returning to home base. So let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm going to play Brahms' Lullaby, and if I make a mistake, I'm probably going to, because I'm looking at a piece of sheet music, but I'm not going to follow each individual note. I'm just going to use the chords to my liking. I'm going to use different inversions and just have fun with it, add some scales, not some scales, but some arpeggios, a couple of different effects here. So let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, so first we're going to talk about, of course, the foundation of this house, the scale. This is the F major scale. All major scales, no matter what note you start on, they follow a very specific formula to form the quality of that scale. Okay, so here is the root F. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. Take any note on the keyboard, follow that formula, and you will end up with the major scale. Okay, what are whole steps and half steps really quick? A half step are two notes that are directly next to each other. So a half step up from F is F sharp or G flat. And then a half step down from F is E. And this applies to all notes. So if I take the note B flat or A sharp, if I want to go up a half step, I go here. If I take B flat and I want to go down a half step, I go here. So what do two halves make? Two halves make a whole. A whole step is two half steps combined. So if I took F and I went up a whole step, I have gone two half steps to G. And then if I go up another whole step, I go to A, up a half step to B flat, up a whole step to C, up a whole step to D, a whole step to E, and then a half step to the root again. Now the tricky thing about scales is that each scale is a little bit differently oriented on the keyboard, and we have to adjust the fingers that we use in order to play each of those scales, just because of its shape. So if I took E flat, for example, I'm not going to start the E flat major scale with my thumb. I'm going to start it with my pointer finger, or my second finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this way I can actually cross underneath and have a much more comfortable hand position as I go up and down the scale. And as you can see, it is completely different from the way I play the F major scale. Learning the intricacies and all the details of each major scale is part of the process. It's a bit grueling, but that's just part of the work. Actually, when we play the F major scale, the right hand and the left hand have completely different fingers. And take a look. The left hand uses every finger, 1, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, while the the right hand doesn't even use the pinky. 1, 2, 3, 4 cross. 1, 2, 3, 4. But now we have the notes of the piece: F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and F. There will never be a B natural. It's always going to be B flat. That's why we skip B natural, is because the B's been flatted. That's why we jump from B flat to C. And it's also just part of the formula: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. All right, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and form 3 different chords. I will dive into all the different chords that we can form in the scale, but 3 to start, okay? This is the first chord we'll form. It's F major. The F major triad meaning 3-note chord, is F, A, and C. And there's 2 ways to think about it. There's 2 ways that I like to think about it. The first way is by basing it off of the scale. So the F major, we know the F major scale. Each scale has 7 notes, and those, we can call them degrees. Here's the first scale degree: 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. If I take the 1st, 3rd, and 5th scale degrees of any major scale, play them all at the same time, that is the major triad. Okay, we can also look at the intervals between all of the notes. Intervals just meaning the distances. This right here is a major third, the interval between F and A. And we also have a perfect fifth, which is the interval between F and C. So F is the root, and we always measure from the root whenever it comes to forming intervals. There we go. So major third, perfect fifth, and we also can think of it as root third and fifth. That's based off of the major scale. All right, we're going to form another chord. Let's do C major. As you can see, C major uses the notes of the F major scale. C, E, and G. These are all part of the F major scale. So we don't have to worry about flats or sharps outside of the key of F. Now, this chord we can think of again in 2 ways. The first way, we're going to think about it as intervals. So we have the root, the third, and we have the root, a major third, and perfect fifth. So these distances are they can be applied to any note at all. If I took E flat, and from E flat I can form a major third and a perfect fifth. So here's our major third and perfect fifth. That's just based off of the whole steps and half steps between each of the notes. But there's also the other way of thinking about each chord, which is part of the scale. So the C major chord is based off of the C major scale. And the C major scale is all the white keys. It does follow the formula of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. So if we form that scale and isolate the root, the first, third, and fifth scale degrees, we end up with that major chord. There's the 2 ways to think about C major. Okay, we're going to form one more chord, which is B flat major. This one's probably the toughest because the B flat major scale is tougher than the F major and the C major. So the B flat major scale, we can form it root or B flat, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Sorry, I played it wrong that first time. And B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, and B flat form that scale. We got two ways to look at this chord. First is the looking at the scale degrees. So the first, third, and fifth scale degrees are B flat, D, and F. And then we also have a major third and a perfect fifth, which again is just the distances from the root. All right, so that's how we form those chords. Those are the rooms of the house. F major, B flat major, C major, and then that will always generally return to F whenever we're playing the piece. So we also, within the F major scale, I just want to go over this really quickly. We won't dive too deep into it, but within F major, you can form a chord off of each individual scale degree, just using the notes of the scale. So if I were to form a triad when G is the root, it'll be G minor. If I form a triad using A as the root, it'll always be minor. And then let's go to B flat. B flat's going to be major. C will be major. D minor. D will be minor. E will be diminished, and then the F will be major. And so this is consistent across all major scales, every single one. Again, just based off of the intervals and the formula of each scale. So if I were to go to the second scale degree, form a chord, second scale degree will always be minor. Third scale degree, always minor. Fourth scale degree, always major. Fifth, always major. Sixth, always minor. Seven, always diminished. And one, always major. So we only need three of these, though. We only need three of these chords. So sorry to throw that all out there at once, but F major, B flat major, C major, and returning to F. So there's one more thing we need to do before we get going with back to the piece, and that is learning how to invert the chords, learning how to rearrange the furniture within each of these rooms. Inversions are the key to freeing up your hands and being able to accompany your own melodies with your right hand. It's the key to all these arpeggios and just having freedom to be where you like. And how do we actually invert a chord? It's a pretty simple process, but being able to get them quick takes some practice. And I'll start with something a little bit different. Start with C major. So if I take the bottom note of C, the C major chord, it's C, and I bring it up an octave, like that, while keeping E and G, while keeping the third and the fifth. This is an inversion of C major. Here's root position. Root position is where the root is the bottom note. This is how we learn how to form all the chords generally. Okay, so we're going to move it around. We're going to invert it up once. Take the bottom note C, or the root, make it the top note. So now the third is the bottom note. Boom. There's first inversion. All right, let's do it again. So let's take the bottom note, which is now the third. Bring it up an octave. All right, here it is. Now it's the top. Now the fifth is the bottom note. Play them all at the same time. This is second inversion. If I do it one more time, take the fifth, bring it up an octave. I've now returned to root position. Just go through every single one of these over and over and over again. Use the pedal if you want. I think it sounds nice with the pedal, because when you use the pedal, it becomes more obvious if you make a wrong note. Oh, that's a different sound. That's something else. The chord will sound the same every time because it's the same notes. It sounds a tiny bit different just because like the texture of each different inversion is different, and different inversions actually serve different purposes. But going through with the pedal is great. And this applies to every single one of those chords. Let's do B flat major really quick. We'll take the bottom note, bring it up an octave. Here's first inversion. Take the bottom note, bring it up an octave. Here is second inversion. Take the bottom note, bring it up an octave one more time, root position. Second inversion, first inversion, then root position. All right, and finally, let's do F major. Here is the root, bring it up an octave to first inversion, and then to second inversion. And then I'm actually not sure about the camera angle. I'm going to bring it down just for the sake of the angle here. And then one more time, root position. There it is. back down, second inversion, sorry, first inversion, root position. There it is. All right, so that's it. We've got the foundation. We've got all the rooms of the house, and a really solid way to think of each one of those chords, using both the intervals to form it and the scale. That's fantastic. B flat major, C major, and then knowing how to invert every single one of those, we are pretty solid. Oops. Now we can start to take a look at Brahms's Lullaby again. I'm not going to go over each individual note of the melody. I take it that you understand at least how to read the treble clef, or just how to look at my hand and just figure out the melody on your own. It's not too complicated. It's not too long, and so we can now go ahead and apply all the chords to the melody. Here's F major, and I'm just arpeggiating here. Arpeggiating is where you just break up the notes of a chord and play them usually bottom to top. Here's F major, here's an arpeggio. I'm in root position with the right hand, root position with the left, although I take out the third. I don't play A. And I can bring it an octave down, make it a full arpeggio. Here's the notes of the melody. What do you notice about my right hand here? It's in an inversion. Whenever the right hand has to play a melody, or at least whenever I play a melody, I try to keep the melody as the highest note or the top note, which means suddenly I have to form the chord right to left rather than left to right, because whenever we were forming all those triads, we were going left to right this way. But if the melody is the top note, we got to go that way. That means we need to incorporate inversions. Here's first inversion. This is the C major chord. I probably should have mentioned this, sorry, but we can form a dominant 7 chord out of this. And dominant is part of functional harmony. Dominant is I don't like doing this, but if I had to give it a synonym, it would be tension. And if we take a C major triad and add a B flat to that triad, this is a dominant 7 chord, because this interval between C and B flat is a minor 7. When we take a major triad and add a minor 7 to it, this applies to all chords. Take a minor triad, add a major triad, add a minor 7 to the top. You've now formed a dominant 7 chord. And also, it is necessary to invert a chord like this. The thing about 7 chords is that they all have 4 notes, which means they have 3 inversions, not just 2. Okay, here's C dominant 7 in root position. Take the bottom note, the root, bring it up an octave. This is first inversion, take the third, bring it up an octave. This is second inversion, take the fifth, bring it up an octave. This is third inversion, take the 7, bring it up an octave. And you've returned to root position. Again, both hands going all the way through that. This one's a challenging one, and this will probably take some time. All right, so I was at that C7 there. My left hand is playing an inversion already. E, B flat, and C. It is pretty confusing to see something like this. E, B flat, and C. And to know how, what chord is that? Because, that's such an odd shape. That's something that it's difficult to take all this music theory and forming all these chords and inversions and to immediately know, okay, what is that? There's a lot there, and we'll dive into a little bit of functional harmony. I hope to explain a little bit of that. So here's C7. Right hand also playing an inversion. Not really an inversion, but it's just like a smaller version. Third, fifth, and 7. C7, moving to root position F major. Here's B flat major, arpeggiating with the left hand, playing a 4-note voicing with the right. following the melody. Here's F major, arpeggiating on the left, back to C7, back to F major. Here we're going to go to B flat major, F major. Here's C7, and F major. All right, so that is the complete lullaby. I do want to take it a step further, talk about functional harmony. What does functional harmony mean? There's two words. Functional, meaning like the job of; harmony, meaning the notes, or like the chords. What is the job of each chord? Let's talk about it. So we've got three chords, we've got three jobs here. Tonic means home base. You go for a walk, you leave your, actually no, you're home right now and you have not left for a walk yet. All right, so now you are on your walk, you are in like some sort of intermediary place. All right, so you're on your walk right now. This is called the subdominant. We're not at the dominant yet, we're at the subdominant. All right, now imagine you get to the dominant chord. Here's like the dominant job. This subdominant is its own category. All right, dominant is its own category. And a snake bites your ankle. And then you rush back home to the tonic. So tonic means home base, or like consonance and rest. Subdominant is a bridge to the dominant, which means tension and like dissonance. Dominant 7, that's where that dominant title comes from. Dominant has no reference to the intervals of each note. It's just like the title of each chord. It's just the title of the chord because of the function of the chord. And then that returns generally to the tonic. So those are the three categories: tonic, subdominant, and dominant. And I could go into each of like what each chord of the F major scale falls into, but for now I'm just going to keep it pretty simple and only use those three chords. Now, in this lullaby, generally whenever like I'm explaining this concept, functional harmony, the tonic moves to a subdominant, moves to a dominant, moves back to the tonic, but the order of those actually varies quite a bit within this piece of music. So I start with the tonic. Here's the tonic chord, moving straight to the dominant. Here's C7, dominant 7, hanging out with the dominant 7. It wants to resolve, it wants to go back home. You can hear it. And here it is. That's why that actually like has a sense of resolution. Dominant, just going to the tonic. It actually resolves. All right, here is the subdominant, moving to the tonic, dominant, tonic, subdominant, tonic, and here's the dominant. The most predictable pattern here is that the dominant chord will always go straight to the, it'll go straight back to the tonic. Dominant generally goes back to the tonic unless there's like a dominant or a subdominant thrown in, but in this case I don't have to worry about it. One other thing I'd like to mention, in this little arrangement that I have here, there are no secondary dominants. So a secondary dominant is a dominant chord that is outside of the key of the piece of music. So we're in the key of F major, and that dominant chord, C dominant 7, uses notes of the F major scale. C, E, G, and B flat, they're all in the scale. But a secondary dominant is a dominant chord, has a dominant function, it wants to resolve somewhere, but it doesn't use the notes of F major. It uses the notes of a different scale. It uses the notes of the scale that the dominant chord will be resolving to. In this case, B flat major. And in the context of Brahms' lullaby, that is the subdominant chord. So in this instance, I sometimes like to go. There it was. that E flat there created tension. And I wouldn't necessarily play it like that if I were to perform it, because that kind of sounds a bit like that. Those clash a little bit. I don't like to have the melody so close to the minor 7 there. How else could I do that? I don't know. I can't really think of anything right now, but that is the dominant. That's a secondary dominant. It's a dominant chord outside of the key of F major, because there's the E flat. There is no E flat in the key of F major, but there is in that scale that we formed earlier. There is in the B flat major. That's where it comes from. Here is essentially we're just stepping outside of the key altogether and moving to B flat. Here it is again. All right, so that about concludes it. Talked about scales, chords, inversions, and how all of those work together so that we can escape. We can finally get out of that constant cycle of learning a piece of music, just memorizing all of the notes and then being stuck with muscle memory and having no deeper understanding. So if you are interested in this, if you found this helpful, I strongly encourage you to get all of your fundamentals down, all of your scales, all of your chords, all of your inversions, and have those in your brain. When I've been teaching for a long time, and so I've compiled all of my teaching resources into one document. I strongly encourage you to check it out if you found this helpful. That's the logical next step. So check out my page where I have a ton more teaching and a ton of resources available as well. So happy practicing. I really hope that this helped, and thank you so much for watching.